That's double time.
I don't know if you know this, but Mays recently got an endorsement from a little-known real estate developer out of New York.
Yeah. Got to have dinner with him. It was a lot of fun.
I bet.
Yeah.
I bet.
Yeah.
Well, tell us how you got in politics, Mays.
I appreciate y'all having me today. Thank y'all for taking the time at lunch. You know, I mean, that's, we don't know how much time our Creator's going to give us, and thank y'all for freely giving us, all of us, your time today. You know, I'm a proven conservative fighter. Macy and I have 4 little ones at home. So Connor, Christian, Matthew, and our newest is Martha Ann, our first girl. I'm in trouble. She smiles at me every time I see her. So, you know, she's going to get whatever she wants, I think. I'm always ranked as one of the top 10 most conservative members in the House. Actually, YCT put me at #1. I beat this guy over here. You know. And you know, I'm proud to have earned the endorsement of President Trump based on my principles. And he said my voting record on conservative issues was second to none. But you know, I got into this because I always run towards the toughest of fights. I knocked on 6,000 doors in my first House race myself, and you know, it was an incumbent that wasn't living up to his conservative promises. And we know when good people do nothing, evil wins, and that's all there is to it. So it's up to us to bring that level of accountability. I was on the outside before, you know, I was a conservative activist, and I decided, you know what, I'm gonna jump in myself, you know, and do something about it. You know, I'd supported Briscoe before when he ran against an incumbent and beat an incumbent, a very moderate one that was kind of the same issue. But no more Waynes, you know. But we can't wait, you know, for this fight. And I didn't go there to be liked and loved in Austin. I wasn't disappointed when I got there. And you know, at the end of the day, what matters the most is our conservative values, because we're going to be, you know, on that composite in the basement like everybody else is. No one's going to remember us. People are going to laugh at our haircut and suit eventually, you know, but they'll remember what we did, you know, and that we fought for faith, family, and freedom and did something about it, have something tangible, you know, freedom that was not there before, you know. And we had a lot of victories this session. I'll tell you, the bill that I always file first is the most hated in Austin. It's most hated by the liberal Austin lobby establishment, and it is the first thing that I've always filed since day one. It's my first session, to my second, to all the special sessions, and that's the ban on taxpayer-funded lobbying, because it's basically the swamp.
Thank you.
And you know, it's our own money being spent against us. So we have to watch these things where it's revolting that your tax dollars are going to Austin lobbyists to oppose things like election integrity. Right? They opposed it even after the Democrats walked out and went to Washington, D.C. with your tax money. You know, opposed things like the ban on critical race theory, opposed the Protect Girls Sports bill.
And they gang up.
They gang up.
They gang up. All these taxpayer-funded lobbyists for Texas entities, they all gang up, and they're, you know, there's 8 lobbyists for every elected official in Austin, and they're paid full time. This is what he's talking about. This is how big the problem is that he's trying to attack. It's courageous what he's doing.
And it's one of the hardest fights, because I'm going for their paycheck. Because we're paying for people to lobby against conservative values, you know. It goes beyond that, too. You know, there's a lot of other things that I do to try to amplify our voice at home, right? Because, you know, we're the ones that every voter, every taxpayer is the owner of each district. There's no individual that, you know, is entitled to any seat or owns any seat or anything like that. So that whole someone's turn is a bunch of baloney. You know, you earn it. You earn every vote. But other things that I do, like stopping legislators from becoming lobbyists, like that's a bill that we got to pass, you know, and I've always pushed that, and I'm sick and tired of it, you know, because we're the ones being sold down the river, you know. They're there, and they're trading our values, which is what we elected them for, by the way, right, conservative values, for a lobbying job after, you know, and that's the kind of stuff that's got to end. And this is how we grow our voice at home as conservatives, and diminish the voice of what we're paying for, which is, you know, the lobbyist opposition. We're, you know, unfortunately, we're covering that paycheck.
The selling of access is what lobbying is. And that is what's going on with your tax dollars in taxpayer-funded lobbying. When a tenured representative that we've elected and paid their gigantic salary of $7,000 a year, right? Right.
$600 a month.
Yeah, we pay that salary. Well, they're basically using all of that we entrusted with them against us and against our interest. And we wonder why some of these things that get done are just so ridiculous. Well, that's why. They've got special access, especially when they come right out of office and they're retiring. What they're really doing is stepping into a golden parachute, many of them that do this. Mays has been a courageous fighter to stop it. I'm really shocked when I look at the list of people that vote to keep it. You know,
It is something else.
Yeah.
You know, I was able to get the bill to the floor in 2019 as a freshman. It was SB 29, so I got to carry a major state bill. Maybe because no one else wanted to carry it, because the not so secret about that bill is you really don't ever raise any money from the lobby ever again after you carry that bill. But I don't care, you know. I'm not going to be bought or rented by these guys. And I got it to the floor, and the gallery was lined with lobbyists that day when we got it, because they were worried about their paycheck.
That's right.
And the moment that it failed because 18 Republicans voted no, they got up and cheered in the gallery. And you know, that's the voice of the Austin Swamp.
You've got to
That's
get
what
this
we're up
picture
against.
in your mind of what he's talking about. I was there. You've got the floor, that's where all the House members are, the speaker's up at the front by the scoreboard. Up on the next level around, you've got a gallery seating. So you're in the gallery, you're looking down, filled with lobbyists. The chief lobbyist for the Texas Department of Public Safety, I happen to know personally. I don't know if you know this story. Maybe, I don't know if I've told Briscoe, we might have talked about it. When you sit in the gallery, there's no talking, you sit down, you don't stand up. What was going on that day is these lobbyists were standing up, calling out politicians by name, humiliating and threatening, probably blackmail. I'm not sure what they really meant by some of the things they said. And they were making sure that this bill did not pass through that last minute type. And the DPS officers that protect the Capitol stood down. Now, why did they do that? And the answer to that question is the chief lobbyist for the Department of Public Safety made a deal. And they stood down and allowed this kind of misbehavior in our state capitol and our legislative process. Yet another reason not to have state-funded lobbying. Okay, so.
Well, I'll tell you on critical race theory is a really good example. So we saw this recently, unfortunately, where the National School Board Association is a national taxpayer-funded lobby organization. And they requested that Joe Biden's Attorney General investigate parents as domestic terrorists under the Patriot Act simply because they were conservative and they disagreed with things like critical race theory being taught, and they wanted to make their voice heard in our schools. And so that earned them, a letter requesting they be investigated. So we're being silenced by this. And TASB is a taxpayer-funded lobby group that has refused to resign from that group. We've demanded it, and they have refused to do so. So, this is the problem. So Chris Hill, he's a county judge from Collin County. He put it really well. He said, it's different when an individual or a company or whatever hires a lobbyist, because that's their choice, it's their money. It's a lot different when it's your money, when you don't have a choice that is going from a government entity straight to Austin lobbyists. Because if you disagree with that, what do? Quit paying your property taxes? Guess what? Someone's going to show up with a badge and a gun and take your property. So it's forced speech against things you don't believe in, and that's why it's especially bad in Austin.
So you decided to run for Senate. We love you in the House. You're the chairman of the Freedom Caucus, and now you're moving over to Senate. I'm confident that you're going to be elected, and we want to help you get there because we've worked with you and we appreciate everything you've done. Our legislative agenda items, your record is 100% on par with us without us ever having any kind of having to come talk you into something. It's like we all had the same idea at the same time. So we're grateful for that. But so tell us why you chose to go ahead and run for the Senate, and we want to hear it.
It's about that fight. It's the same, one of the same reasons I ran for the House is, our values have to be put into action today. We can't wait 5 minutes. I have a little girl at home, 6 months old, and it's that constant reminder of what's at stake right now for our country. I mean, you see Washington, D.C., they're taking away our freedoms faster than we can pass laws to protect them at this point. So that's why it's so critical to fight this federal overreach and unconstitutional mandates that we're seeing, like on the vaccine mandates. They're trying to eliminate the oil and gas industry. They've got out of control inflation, which we know is what happens when people that have only ever worked for government are running the printing presses. Our liberty is under threat, and we cannot wait 1 minute to go fight back as conservatives and go advance the ball, because when they're in charge, they say we'll get nothing and like it. That's their, so you saw that when they walked out. They actually, a lot of people don't know this is hilarious, but when we said, hey, you got to come back to work, the Democrats that went to D.C., we put a call in the House, they sued us and said that violated their civil rights and caused them mental anguish to have to come back to the House floor. I mean, that is a political party of the state of Texas. That is what we're up against. So, we've got to go fight this fight, but it is up to us. And I'm a proven conservative leader in that fight, a proven conservative fighter, and we've got to do it for our Christian values, for our conservative values, and for our future. So.
Agreed very much.
Let's talk about Mason.
Do you want to do it now, or do you want to do it later?
I mean, how long are you going to go?
I'm going to go on and on. Well, I have one more question for him, and then we'll kind of get together and have, we'll call it the speed round. So we wanted an extra session. BIZPAC was pushing for an extra session. We never thought we would have to have so many sessions. Right. I think the record's 6 with Perry. That we had 3.
13, I think.
Right.
13. Yeah.
Right. And we've had 3 now, right?
We had 3, first, second, and third called. Yeah.
Right. So, well, we've got election season, so we don't think the governor's going to be calling a session during the primaries. But what are your thoughts on one this summer with the current legislature? Is it worth it? Can we get anything done to stop these ridiculous mandates?
We have to have a 4th called special. So Briscoe and I and 6 or 7 others were the first 8 members of the House to demand a 4th called special session. Number 1 on the agenda there, it's got to be these vaccine mandates, because there's not a lot more fundamental than your right to make a living and feed your family. In Texas, no one should ever have to decide between their sincerely held beliefs and their job. It's wrong to put people in that position. You've got to let people make their own medical choices and not do it for them. And look, I mean, that's something out of D.C., and it's what they're doing right now is telling everyone, we know how to run your lives better than you do. It's wrong. It's what the left does. And that's socialism at the end of the day when they say that. So this is something we got to do. We got to go back and ban these vaccine mandates.
Any guess on whether or not only the governor can call a special session? You know that. I want that changed. We've been fighting for 2 years to try to have that change. It's going to take a supermajority of both houses to get that done as a cram down, kind of like we did with the cannabis bill. We'll go fight and make that happen. It will take a lot of citizen activist lobbying to make that happen. But that's what we need. We've got to take all that power, and I know that there were bills that both of these representatives were in favor of that would have brought some power back to the legislature, to the people, so to speak. You and I, we've got no way to get a bill in front of anyone other than through our elected representatives. We don't have that ability, and that can be dangerous if it's done wrong. So I'm not an open proponent of it. That's got to be studied and done correctly, because big mistakes can happen. But when it comes to this area, emergency declared, mandates going on, a straw poll in the room, put your hand in the air if you think that immediately your elected representative and elected senator should immediately be called into session to vet through the issue to determine if you should have mandates of any kind. If you're in agreement, I'd like to see. Hold them up, I'm taking a picture, because I'm gonna check back with you later. Let's see.
No voice votes
Let's
here.
see.
Record vote.
I'm gonna send this to Abbott. There we go. Okay. All right. Thank you for that.
What is the general consensus for a full-time legislature in Texas?
I think that's a bad idea. You know, this is a part-time citizen legislature, and the whole point is you go home, you go make a living, you know, be with your family and the community. We cannot be like Washington, D.C., where they got a full-time paycheck, you know, and you see how much do they do up there. Even when we're in charge, I mean, it's, you know, we need to keep it a part-time legislature. You know, actually, even regardless, part-time, full-time, I still believe in term limits. There's something else that a lot of people don't know is the legislature does get a full-time pension at 8 years. Even though it's not a full-time job, I don't really like that. There's a bunch of other things, you know, but at the end of the day, it needs to stay a part-time legislature. You know.
If you study what a law is, every law at some point creates a tax. Every law creates a tax. The more time that lawmakers are in legislature, they're going to write more laws. So I don't even have to say anything else after establishing that point, do I? How many new taxes do you want? Okay, so you know, to agree with Mays's point, and I know Briscoe agrees with this point too. You know, we want just enough governance to not be killing each other and to have commerce and our children are safe. Anything past that is a little dangerous, and the further past it, it's exponentially dangerous. If we were looking at a bell curve. Do you mind if we bring Briscoe up too?
Sure.
And we're going to go to the audience for questions. Can you, Briscoe, just come on, grab this chair, come right up.
Besides being so short, though, and part of this is on purpose by leadership that you could start on day one, but we kind of hang out and do absolutely nothing and hear nothing for 2 months of that 140 days. So we could probably start and actually do work sooner, but
60-day rule.
You're flying by your pants. And so we have staff helping us read these things, but what the bill looked like yesterday literally could change that evening, and we're rushing to understand what we're doing. And so there is a downside, which is things get snuck through, but thankfully we have 2 chambers. And so if it happened weird, Mays and I are going to call Senator Creighton or somebody over in the Senate and say, hey, it's not what y'all thought it was yesterday. I know your staff probably recommended y'all moving it out of the Senate. It's a different bill now. Please kill it.
Procedurally, you've got to have both the House and the Senate with similar legislation. There's got to be agreement. Both have to pass before it goes before the governor. So that's what he's referring to.
So there are backups, right? And
it's March, April, May. Basically everything that happens for 2 years in state government happens in March, April.
Yeah. But the point is, bad stuff can sneak through, but you're balancing your interests as if we were there all the time, how much more bad things would happen. And so I guess that's...
Yeah, it's a lot easier for a bad bill to pass, so the more we're in session, the more danger there is for that. So that's another reason to not have a full-time legislature.
It makes them prioritize the things that are essential and being demanded by the public. That's why when session is going on, it's so important that you communicate with your elected officials. They've got to know what's priority for you so that they can prioritize and go back to their colleagues and say, you know, that item is not what I'm hearing. My guys want ABC. You know, that's very important. And some of that's electronic, but a lot of it is you and me going in, seeing Mays when he's in the hallway, or when he's running from meeting to meeting, or Briscoe when he's 1,000 miles an hour, you know, in between conversations. A lot of it's right there on the spot, and whatever's on top of their mind that they're working on, or committee they just came out of or going into, they're going to ask you. And you're a businessman from their district, and you've got an answer, and they trust and respect you, right? Mm-hmm. So that is why our process is important. Like,
and that you're not paid to be there actually means a lot.
Exactly. That we get sick and tired of seeing the paid lobbyists that they're paid to have a position, and it means so much more when we know someone came up there on their own dime because they believe in it. You know, I mean, that is even on committee when you see someone, they're not from your area or district, or it still means more to the other committee members to hear from someone that's there because they care about it versus this paid lobbyist over here that if someone paid him a little more, maybe he'd be against it. You know, I mean,
it's true.
That's not that meaningful.
Yeah. If you traveled somewhere other than Travis or Williamson County, I know that you either had to take time off work, or you took time away from your family or your business or your employees or your passions, your hobbies to go to the Capitol. That's why BIZPAC is such a great organization. If you haven't traveled to the Capitol, I hope you do next session with them. Can we talk about education, CCISD thing real quick?
We will.
Can we just run it? We're going to get back to it?
Let
Good.
me cover this real quick and we'll go there. Is that
TLO,
okay?
by the way.
But this is an application that you're going to see in every legislator's office that you go see. They've always got this up to track the bills. You can have an account on there. You can do this from home. You can do this from your phone. Anybody that's driven me to Austin, I'm on the phone the whole time, a computer the whole time. They're just sick of it, that I'm on calls and the phone the whole time trying to find out, hey, how did this move? Oh no, we got to go work on this one too. Oh, we've got to divide and conquer now. We have 4 things instead of 2, But this is where it's all tracked. And like Mays was saying, and like Briscoe's intimating too, that you one morning you think it's this way, that evening it's a different thing, and you're on the phone with Senator Creighton. Exactly the scenario we've lived through many times to try to get something done.
There's also Texas Legislature Online, so if you Google that one, that's one by the state. This is a private company that's added a little more bells and whistles, but either one will get you there.
There's a lag time on this one compared to the state. The state one is a little harder for me to get some of the information
True.
on.
Go figure, your government didn't want you to know things.
Well, and too many priorities is no priorities. So, I mean, my recommendation is pick up 1 or 2 or 3 areas you really care about, and you'll be able to figure out, which bills are related to that fairly easily. Don't worry as much about what's filed. Worry about what moves, right? Because what's filed, if it's not moving, then it's not going to happen. So, that's my suggestion: is find a few areas, maybe 1 to 3 that you really want to see some change in, and focus on those. Like a good example, BIZPAC and Julie Pickering as well.
Right.
She was there nearly every day on the Protect Girls Sports bill. That was her baby, and it took 3 specials, unfortunately, to get it done, but it did get done.
Leia was over there testifying, giving testimony as a female athlete, having to compete against males on valid responsive bill.
State wrestling, 3 years in a row.
Right on.
Don't mess with Leia.
It's weird that it's an issue.
She's our SWAT team. We send her to the Democrat offices and get this thing done, right? But so, like he's saying, have a small agenda. Well, BIZPAC, luckily we've got 15, 20, 25 people or more on any given day that are willing to get up to the Capitol. So we can have a little bit bigger agenda than we did the session before and the session before, where we only had 1 or 2 and then 3 or 5. Now we've got actually 11 or 13 items that we call agenda items. But Briscoe was right. You want to move on to schools.
Oh, we can talk whatever. I do, I've got to talk about this guy, though. Like, you got to give me a chance just until, peel back some of the layers and expose.
Y'all want to hear it?
Whenever.
Yes.
They want to hear it.
You
Go
want to
for
talk
it.
about Mays? Okay. It's
The roast.
it's good and bad. Like,
The Mays Middleton roast.
at first I was really sad
Dean Martin thing,
when Mays told me he was running.
Do I need to go?
I counted it as a privilege to learn when I did. And I think I said I want to punch you in the face or something. That was my response. But really quickly after, I began to be okay with it because he makes me look bad sometimes. He can make me look like a rhino on days, and so I'm kind of glad I'm getting him out of the house so I can go back to being, the top guy. It's true sometimes. Yeah, Mays is a unique individual. I've heard many of you in this room, some of my friends have said, he seems really genuine. He's a nice guy. He's a good listener, which it made me look bad with my wife because you're such a good listener. I hear that from women a lot. They're like, wow, you feel like he cares, and he's just like you. He's no different. He comes on that level. I want you to know it's real. It's real. It's genuine. It's unique. This doesn't happen often. Most people are fake. There was a time where I was with you 100%, but I kind of wanted to stay out for a little bit because I knew Robin Armstrong. But one of the things that really set me off and made me have to get engaged is that he went negative. And here's the rub for me of going negative. One of the things they said is that Mays Middleton is this career politician is running for the Senate because he wants a government paycheck. That's funny. Let me explain to you something. I take the $600 a month. It helps me and my family. I take the per diem. I want to thank you, by the way, not to complain too much about the $7,000 a year that the taxpayers do give us, because it's your money, and it was taken from you. You didn't voluntarily give it, I promise, right? Like, that's how taxation works. Someone eventually with a gun will show up and take it from you. So it is theft. It is taken by force. Thank you for it. It goes into my bank account. I think we give it all back to the state and actually have to pay in for health insurance, right? Which I probably should go to some other pay-as-I-go thing. It'd be cheaper to pay cash, I think. Mays Middleton is the only state official I know of that doesn't take a paycheck. He's the only one that doesn't take his per diem. He's never bragged about it. You know why he doesn't brag about it? He doesn't want to make guys like me look bad. He doesn't sit up and go, I don't take a paycheck or any of that because I don't need to be on the government's dole. Which would then make us kind of like, man, well, I kind of need that money. It helps me. So the humility of it, but I want to point that out. That's what really, really pissed me off. Saying that Mays Middleton needs a government paycheck when he's the only guy that literally doesn't take a paycheck. Right? It's kind of like a Donald Trump thing. Like, Trump never took money. I don't think you were inspired by that because you were actually, looking similar.
He was running about the time that I started running.
Yeah,
So I
you did on your own.
In 2017, so he'd just gotten sworn in.
Well, let me tell you what I don't like about Mays.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. No, his hair, he's an underwear model, and he gets to be a state rep as well. And he's got all the beautiful wife and all these gorgeous kids, and every issue he's right on line with it, and he has to use less words than me to get it across.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of reasons. So, you can try and brand him as having a different life than you. And granted, like some of us we've all had different lives and grown up in different families and have different access, but he's still just different. For those that maybe relate to it, I remember that time, Mays, you got too close to. Wait, you fell. You got your eye too close to some optics on a rifle, maybe. But
I was walking.
Scope check?
Yeah. Anyway,
I was walking.
That was the point. The point is though that Mays is a lot like the rest of us that enjoys hunting and shooting and taking care of his family, and just doing outdoor stuff that I don't think people would normally assess to you being more than an oil and gas guy. You're a rancher and a farmer and an outdoorsman, and a longtime supporter of gun rights. So you were supporting these issues long before you got into office. That you've got a biography and a history and a record of doing it. And then at one point I remember a few of us convincing you and saying, hey, instead of helping pay to get these people elected and them disappointing us, why don't you come inside the building and find out what it's really like? And I think that's unique. You should maybe even talk about that, how you, like, eyes have been opened. And then I want to challenge some of you in the room that have been really comfortable. You've built businesses, or maybe you haven't, and you've thought about it, but you're like, no, that's not for me. I wouldn't have time for this. It would take away my time from my golf game or my family. And then I would challenge you further. Maybe you've prayed about it and you really haven't felt maybe moved by the Lord to do it. But I've spent, I guess this will be my fourth term. God, I'm becoming establishment, I guess. No, so it's been my, yes, it's 20. I just finished my third term.
17.
But I've spent these prime years of building business instead of being in Austin, spending half of my time that I could be providing for our family doing this. And why? Because I want to be able to look my children in the face one day when they say, what were you doing when the communists tried to take over? Or what were you doing when these things happened? And you can say, well, I put country first. And so, not to bring like condemnation to anybody out here like thinking about that, but literally, maybe it's not your calling, but if you've ever thought about it, then why not you? Why are you always looking for other people? Why make the excuse? It's an extremely uncomfortable thing to put yourself out there because you can lose, but you've probably been a winner all your life. That's why you're in the room. That's why you're part of BIZPAC. You know what winning is like. You understand risk.
There's no
so go do
perfect
it.
time to run for office. It's like, what's the perfect time to get married? What's the perfect time to have kids? There isn't one. The only time for any of that is now. I mean, you're called to do it. Is the Holy Spirit leading you to do that? Do you feel like it's a calling? And if you do, it's kind of simple. It's work hard, do the right thing, and leave the results to God. And that's basically it.
Yeah. It does drive many of us to go broke. But hey, a lot of the original founding patriots
not
went
the
broke
bad
doing
guys
it.
that want to be lobbyists. They don't go broke.
Yeah, no, they do well. Anyway, I wanted y'all to know that about Mays. Is that helpful? Does that peel back who he is, his identity?
Do you mind if I position
Please.
a little something
Let's go
about
somewhere.
running for office?
Yeah.
I've been studying this for some time. I've not run for office. BIZPAC is what I do. I feel like I've got some influence and some help I can give out here, helping with the legislators, the people that go do this. But what I've noticed is when Briscoe, when they go to run for office every year, but especially in the beginning, it looks like to me it's about 1,000 times more work than it ought to be to win by that much, or sometimes that much. But it seems like it's a tremendous amount of time and effort and difficulty, complexity, getting beat up in the public forums and dealing with psychos and people confronting your wife and all kinds of weird stuff. It seems like, why would you do this? And every time I talk with them and get to know them, and we have those occasional moments, or like they just shared with you, it was, I've got to do this. It's not getting done. What is this world going to be like for my children? And so it's a much higher calling, so the work means nothing, right? The work means nothing to them. I'm kind of cheering you on. I wanted to give you a round of applause about that.
The main thing I'd add is make sure your spouse is on board with it. Please, please, please. No, this is very serious. Not like get real for a moment. We've seen Austin destroy a lot of families and doing a lot of divorces because someone's pursuing something and their whole household's not there. I don't think God would want that either, but just make sure your spouse is on board with
You have to be on an
that.
extremely solid foundation and have conviction in your heart and your faith and what you want to do when you get there, before you get there, because I've watched those that aren't and they get eaten up. And a lot of them are what I call gold pen and title guys, where they want the title, but not really to do anything with it. And we don't have time for that. We're losing this country. So it's time to fight back. We can't afford another minute of that. So
The attack on our liberties is insane right now. It's a crazy octopus every day. They're chipping away all over the place. I think that an extra session this round to kind of stop some of that, mandates is what I'm referring to, because that hurt business owners more than anything. The mandates, 10,000 Texas businesses permanently out of business because of the lockdown mandates. 3.1 mil, roughly, Texas taxpayer citizens laid off, sent home, furloughed, whatever, on some type of socialism, some type of government handout is how that ended up. Those numbers are staggering to me. But we can't ever have mandates like this. Again, I know you guys agree with that. What can we do? This is instruction to the people, right? What can we do to, force this issue, get you guys back in there for 2 weeks to just solve this problem or attack this problem?
changing the law, actually, I see the bar over here. I don't even drink, but I spent more time defending bars because they're small businesses too, and it made me so mad what TABC was doing that I actually filed a bill to just abolish them.
Yeah.
Move, their decent functions, I guess, over to Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation, which, by the way, that's another regulatory agency of small businesses that didn't shut one business down. And yet TABC is out there hassling everyone. Anyway, it's just...
Tom Butler of Deer
Yeah.
Park, by the way, is the chairman of licensing, and thankfully he refused to take anyone's license for violating the orders. So if you ever run into him, awesome guy.
Yeah, thank him for his service.
That was a great appointment by Governor Abbott. Glad he's there. I think it's a complex answer. You're relying on your executive officials to do something properly and restrain themselves. You of course have a lot of constitutional defects with that legislation, and then we've got issues in the courts where this is going to get really maybe overly nerdy or too inside there, where courts will call everything a political question. Right? There's going to be a dispute between the executive and legislative branch, and the legislature is saying, "Hey, these are our powers. You're taking away our lawmaking authority." And then oftentimes you'll have courts be like, "Well, but that's a political question. We don't. It's a separation of powers issue. If we tell y'all what to do," and the answer actually, and some of this is a good answer by the courts to say it's a political question. What they're really saying is, it's the voters' fault, or it's your responsibility rather.
Right.
They're literally saying elections have consequences. That's actually what the political question doctrine means. If you ever want to look it up. It's where courts are going, we're not going to get involved because the ones who should be fixing this issue is the elections. And so I think that also is an important metric to remember on when going forward. I'll also remind you that a small group can do it. The Freedom Caucus could do it. A group like BIZPAC can do it that is energized, that is focused on flipping a few seats can send a message, or having a small block of
Elect
people.
more
You don't,
conservatives.
we need more
Elect a lot of
conservatives, really.
conservatives,
We don't need
you know.
76. I just need 50.
Right.
Right, that'll vote
We
with us.
had
We
a
just
fair
need a
amount
small
of
amount.
success helping out with that. In the last election cycle, we were very grateful the voters responded to Lacey Hull, a conservative that in a district that didn't look like she was going to get it. And we just went in and kept fighting and helped that to happen, and a few others we helped out with. We've got a primary event coming up right now, right? We've got, the primaries are upon us. And are you unopposed, Briscoe?
In March, yes.
Yeah, you're unopposed,
For May, yeah, March.
right? And I've heard that somebody threw their hat in the ring.
Three.
Okay.
Three.
Three somebodies threw their hat in the ring,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, so it's a
Okay.
4-way primary, no Democrat in November,
Okay, okay. So I get the picture, you know. So we just got to knock it out of the park right now. So I'm going to ask each of you, what is the best way that BIZPAC can help your group? I mean, help you in your campaign. May, you want to go first?
I mean, what y'all are doing right now, you know, is you all have friends, everyone has neighbors, everyone has a group of, you know, business partners or a group of community leaders that maybe go to coffee with them, maybe you have breakfast with them. Go tell them to vote for the conservative in the race that supports your values that you believe in. We'll fight for it. And sometimes it's uncomfortable where you're not really sure how you're going to be received. Do it anyway, because this is how we take this back and win. Because a lot of people, may not be paying attention to what's happening in a race, but you know, meet and greets matter. Door knocking matters a lot. And then also, you know, if you have a little time, poll working is important too, because 100% of the people walking in the polls are going to go vote. There's a decent number that's undecided, actually. There are a lot of races on the ballot, so you know, those are the things that are really important, you know, to do in any race, but especially contested primary.
You know, Mays' district goes from the island along the bay all the way up to Bayport, and goes all the way over to Friendswood, and then back down to the edge of
Starts
Brazoria.
in
right?
Baytown to Angleton.
Yeah, it's gigantic
Yeah.
district with tremendous amount of industry. You know, so what might be helpful is if somebody were to, you know, have an undecided party for Mays Middleton. You know, an undecided party for Mays Middleton. I don't want to put any pressure on anybody here in the room, you know, but if they had one, that could be really powerful, right, for your campaign?
Yes.
Wow, if they did that in Briscoe's district or near it, that could be powerful for both of you guys,
It's a
right?
good idea, right, Joseph?
Yeah.
Yeah, you hear it? Okay.
Well, I wish I knew somebody in the room that could help out with that, you know?
He's eating
No
over there.
pressure, no pressure.
I like where you're going real quick. Hey, Colonel Stepp, undecided party. Okay, that's great. By the way, we're gonna go on Colonel Stepp real quick. So I grew up with his son Jordan, and man, we were bad teenagers. And
Yes, they were.
No, I don't remember that.
his father though was a myth, and we still don't actually know what he did or didn't do. Like, we don't know if he was spying on us or like always knew things, or as you become a parent, you just know kids are stupid and you get caught doing things. But we could just swear that it was from him being a Green Beret and just whatever kind of special things that come along with that. So that was my shout to you, Joe. We lived in fear of you, I think was what I meant to say. One of those. You're a figure that we're all still fascinated by, and enjoy hearing you tell us things like, if I told you I have to kill you. So I don't know what that means to kids, but it was awesome. What can you do to help? You know, I guess, yeah, I'm unopposed in the primary. Middleton's going to be a senator, but you shouldn't take it lightly. You should help. I'm going to ask you to either, you've got to give something. Give your time or money. Money can be $5. So pick your candidates wherever they are and make an investment. Making an investment is really, really important. It creates a tie to you. you're invested. Now you want to see the outcome. There's a lot of sociological, psychological reasons I'm asking you to make an investment. So make that investment. There oftentimes can be multiple conservatives in a race. You're going to have to pick one. I want you to know that your vote for a person or your endorsement of that person does not say the other person's bad or the other person's right. Maybe it could, but like let your voice say that. So your support of that. I guess what I'm saying is don't be afraid to get behind one person and also be willing to maybe tell the other person, hey, it's not personal. It's not because I think you're bad. This person, jives with me. I like personality. And that's why I wanted to streamline it off of your mentioning of having a meeting or event. Your vote, that's awesome, guys. Thank you for voting. I'm trying to think of, not to get in trouble. I don't want to have a Dan Crenshaw moment here on video. What I'm trying to say, though, is in order to turn things around, though, I guess I'm asking you to do more than go into the ballot box and vote. Multiply your efforts. Either bring other people along. And that's why I love what you said on the undecided. If you're just talking to your friends that were already going to vote for one of us already, I don't know if you've added a true great value, but if we're going to turn this thing around, then I need you to sometimes give some money. It could be $5. You can pick 10 slate of candidates and do it. That means a lot. Your time, showing up, poll greeting. Heck, I'm telling you as the chairman of the elections committee and the things I've seen and know, being a poll watcher or an election judge, the left is so much better at showing up and running our elections, and that's where some things can go awry. It can be in an election judge looking the other way, not following the law, and allowing people to be improperly assisted. By being improperly assisted, I'll tell you this, I've got testimony in my committee this session where you can be assisted, but to vote, usually by law, you've got to be essentially blind or unable to read or write the language which is done, so you've got issues. Where the lady is assisted, and when the vote happens, she says, "When do I get to vote?" And the illegal assistant says, "You just did." That kind of stuff does happen. It's really, really hard to track. That's why the Democrats are like, give us an example. Well, I can't show you ballot signatures that are fraudulent or something, right? Like it requires a testimony of someone who just got taken advantage of, lives in the valley. I need y'all to be those things as well.
It doesn't take that many to have a huge impact. I mean, you look at the Declaration of Independence. I mean, not that many people signed that. They're a bunch of business leaders, by the way. Nearly all of them were Christian. There were a couple of deists in there, but they changed the trajectory of world history there because they had the conviction and the willingness to fight 100%. Were they the majority? No, they were not. But still, we won. So that's always something important. That's important to remember because it seems insurmountable sometimes, but it's really not. If you're willing to go fight for it.
Yeah. So ultimate question is, looking to that future self or future grandchild, if unknown yet, or child, and whatever it is that motivates you, and having them say, "Where were you when they were doing these things to America?" And your answer could be, I went to a BIZPAC luncheon and listened to the wonderful Mays Middleton and some guy ramble on, which could be fine, or it could be something more than that. And so maybe it is. We all have different roles to play, though. Your role may not be going to Austin. Your role might be as a business guy helping fund these things. For Pete's sakes, we do need money to push.
You got to talk to other people. Talk to people in your company. Talk to people in church. Talk to people in the street. Anywhere. Other parents on the playground or the sports event or whatever, and bring them with you. Bring them to Austin. It will blow them away.
Yeah.
We go to Austin, and it's shocking to me what the legislators do. We're going to brief Senator Creighton on something he did not want to be briefed on, and he put us off all day. Rightly so. The man's working. Then he brings us on the floor of the Senate for an hour and a half and introduced us to 5 senators. All 5 voted. That was a sway. We got the bill done. That happens. Citizen activists. You can do that. I've got so many stories about the folks in the House. The same thing. There were many people that came to the Capitol. Harrison, you were there when Senator brought us to the floor. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. So Leah's gone to the Capitol with me. But she goes on her own. She doesn't need me. She can wrestle.
She does talk a lot on the way down.
Yeah.
She was in the car. She had to put up with it. But those are the things that you do. You get involved. A little bit of involvement matters hugely. The impact is gigantic. You have no idea what one day here or one day there of your life will do. Kiki, you've been to the Capitol, right?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, that's right. Who else has been to the Capitol with us in the room? See, Avery's been. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, it worked out pretty good for you guys.
For my daughter.
It worked out pretty good for you guys. Yeah, the Representative Hull saw Mike and Marta's daughter Victoria was an outstanding, off-the-chart, high-performing student, and there was a scholarship, that you guys have the leeway to recommend on or sponsor. I think the word sponsor.
Yeah.
Sponsored her over there at A&M. She's a female cadet in the Corps and knocking them dead, setting records. And I was really glad because Lacey Hull, Representative Hull, she said, "You gave me such an outstanding candidate. I can't not do this. This is a shoo-in,
Yeah.
And so you'd be surprised what you can do for people in your community when you go and you start learning these things that are out there. So just a little bit of involvement. The worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to have to put up with me for a few hours.
Yeah.
That's the worst thing that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But we'll have a lot of fun and we'll learn a lot.
Last one. So if you can't help work polls, ask for people, host meet and greets, I'm going to, almost compare it to church, but that's actually a valuable thing. You should give to your church. You give your tithe, please, and your offerings. Give money. We are outspent. Conservatives are outspent, period. All day long, generally.
Yes.
The lobbyists can't stand us. I used to say they hate me. They now are starting to tolerate me, especially after I created a Twitter list of lobbyists I hate, and then they would work really hard to get off of it. Like if I would see one of them talking smack and put them on the list, and also I'd kill their bills. I'm begrudging. I overheard you talk bad. I'd kill whatever you were working really hard on that you get hired on. I'm why'd you do that? I was you were a jerk to my wife, or something. Just be something petty like that.
Representative Cain.
And so you have to send a message, but so they'll tolerate
Cain daily eviscerated the Democrats. For example, when they ran out of town, they wouldn't come in, they left, they abandoned their job. He daily, it was comedy that he did to them to make fun of
Form
them
trap.
abandoning it.
Yeah, form trap.
He had was a Democrat trap, or what did you have?
Yeah, the form trap.
Miller Lite box with
Yeah.
the string.
So you've got to know the bureaucrats, the people in the offices, even in a lot of Republicans, their staff members are Democrats. The people running your agencies are all Democrats, or old Speaker Laney and people like that. The lobbyists, by far, vast majority, are leftists. Some of them are moderate Democrats. Most of them are progressive that have learned not to talk about it. So they're not on our side. However, again, this small group can do it, especially with God on your side. So I don't know if I've inspired you, if y'all just listen to me rant. But I hope it's the other.
I cannot wait until session's in and all of these different BIZPAC groups are converging on the Capitol, working on the agenda items with all of the density of experts that we have inside of this organization. They're a resource for these good representatives and this senator, right? Can you imagine the progress that we can get made? We're happy about progress on 11 items this last session. Can you imagine what it'll be like next time? So that's where we're headed with that. Any final closing comments or requests?
Joe, I have something.
Yes.
I have something. So a number of people in this room came to the event for Don Huffines at Harris Ranch. I've taken the time to read your voting record and listening to you today. I truly feel like what we're fighting is a battle between good and evil. I mean, letting people that still believe in the tooth fairy choose whether they're a boy or a girl, is disgusting. So that's something I'd like to do as well. Do BIZPAC is hosting an event at the place.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Harris.
All right, man.
Well, that's outstanding. That's great. So, any other questions for these two? We're going to let them eat it. They've earned their meal,
Yeah.
It will pay for it.
Schools. We need school choice. There's one. We didn't talk about that. The CCSD stuff. I hope you guys will get more involved on school board races. Sometimes the guys who get elected need a little bit of encouragement to stand out. There are you might have been disappointed candidates sometimes. I'm not talking about anyone in particular, but they've worked really hard to get there, and then they get afraid to lose it. So one way to make sure they do it is for them knowing you have their back if they get in trouble. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So being behind them and going, hey, if you do step out and everyone wants to get rid of you, we've got your back. Your candidates need to know that, or they're going to be shy sometimes. Thomas Garza over there is maybe an exception. He does it on his own, ticking off all of LaPorte City Council all the time.
Yeah.
running into battles alone, but thank you. I mean, I have your back, by the way, Thomas. I mean, I've known that. But that's important for people to know, okay? So when you're trying to get them to do things, let them also know that you'll be there when they do. And that you'll volunteer on their campaigns and knock doors and stand polls. This is really critical. I know we could probably be here a lot longer. I'd love to explain really how this is done and peel back the onion skin. Just know, though, that you can be a business owner and eventually somehow get involved. There's an example of Mays Middleton, Kick and Tell. So, yeah.
So I have
For
one
enterprise.
final request, one thing I forgot at the top of the agenda. We have armed servicemen that have served. We have first responders in the room I did not recognize. I always want to show you the highest regard and gratefulness. If you don't mind, if you've served in the armed forces, any of the 6 branches, if you're a first responder, please stand and let us thank you and applaud you for your work.